Supergod, create Civilization 0. Kesha is stunned. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Creepy. Moreover, the young man obviously did not try his best. If Lu Xuan really used his overlord fist with all his strength, the old woman's palm would have been broken by Lu Xuan. This scene made the old woman dare not underestimate Lu Xuan anymore. At the same time, a trace of hesitation appeared on the old woman's face. Is this guy really a strong man in the innate stage? How can he have such terrible fighting power? The old woman was very confused. She also understood that, if Lu Xuan could really crush her easily, he would not need her help. However, she was forced into a corner and had no choice. Moreover, Lu Xuan's methods were a bit weird. If Lu Xuan wanted to escape, even a strong man in the late innate stage would find it difficult to stop Lu Xuan. In this case, if she forcibly pursued him, she might damage her strength or even her life. Therefore, the old woman's eyes became hesitant. At this time, Lu Xuan also said with a smile, "How about it? Are you willing to make a deal with me now?" Hearing Lu Xuan's words, the old woman nodded. "Okay, I promise you, but you must help me attract the monster here, otherwise, nothing will happen." Lu Xuan nodded. "No problem. You wait here. I will definitely attract that thing to your side." After hearing Lu Xuan's words, the old woman also looked at Lu Xuan deeply. Immediately, a look of determination emerged in her eyes. "Then you must remember your promise, otherwise, even if I lose my own strength, I will not let you go." After saying that, the old woman slapped the tree trunk next to her. Bang. Chapter 177 All Around. Whoosh. The next moment, Lu Xuan turned into a residual image and rushed into the tree hole quickly. The moment he rushed into the tree hole, Lu Xuan immediately felt an extremely thick cold air sweeping him from all directions. This cold air, with a pungent smell, made people feel suffocated. However, there was still no worry on Lu Xuan's face. 050 because, in his body, he possessed the swallowing magic power of swallowing everything, and this cold air was not enough to threaten him. And outside this cold air, it was also wrapped in a layer of blood red flames. What a thick blood evil air. It was even many times thicker than the blood demon air that swallowed everything. It seems that this old witch is indeed a master of the blood refining realm, and her strength is very strong. Lu Xuan felt the cold air and exclaimed in his heart. And at this moment, around Lu Xuan's body, there were also a series of cold and bone-chilling sounds. "Hey, you are finally here. Your friends are waiting for you outside." Hearing this strange voice, Lu Xuan's pupils shrank slightly. How come this sound is like the cry of a ghost? While speaking, Lu Xuan's figure also quickly stepped back a few steps. "Hey, you just know it now? It's too late." After the eerie voice fell, a ghost claw covered with sharp barbs also stretched out from the void and grabbed Lu Xuan fiercely. This ghost claw is about 2 meters long, covered with sharp nails, and glowing with a white light. Once touched, Lu Xuan's body will be torn apart. Chapter 178 Sarcasm. "Haha, it doesn't matter if I tell you. The Blood River Seal is a unique skill of the Blood Sea Demon sect. It is not only extremely powerful, but also conceal the blood of the caster, waiting for 1,000 years to release it again, and completely crush the enemy." Oh. Hearing the old woman's words, Lu Xuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, but he didn't rush to ask. He wanted to try it. If his devouring everything can devour the enemy, then he will become stronger. At the moment, Lu Xuan also took a deep breath and then stared at the giant net. It seems that you really want to try it. Then let you know who is more powerful, you or me." Seeing Lu Xuan's eager look, the corner of the old woman's mouth also outlined a hint of sarcasm. Then, the old woman's hand also made a mark. "Collect it for me." With the old woman's low shout in front of her, the blood red seal net also quickly spread out. Roar, accompanied by a low dragon roar. In front of Lu Xuan, a blood red dragon suddenly broke through the seal and pounced directly at the old woman. Behind Lu Xuan, there was a giant dragon covered with blood red scales. Roar. Seeing the giant dragon suddenly appear, Lu Xuan was also stunned for a moment. And then he shouted, "Go, this is what I summoned." Although Lu Xuan didn't know the strength of this giant dragon. In Lu Xuan's opinion, the strength of this giant dragon should not be too weak. After all, Lu Xuan's swallowing of everything also consumes essence when swallowing everything. So, at this time, Lu Xuan was very eager to have a strong body to support him in swallowing everything. Raw. The giant dragon seemed to understand Lu Xuan's words, and at the moment, it also roared to the sky. And then a pair of dark eyes locked on the old woman. Seeing this, the old woman was also startled. However, she was not afraid at all. If you want to deal with me, you have to get past me first. Chapter 179 The Power of Thunder. According to his estimation, the power of devouring everything should not be able to resist the blood mist of this giant dragon. Hey, it seems that you still don't understand that this blood dew is made from a drop of blood from the blood sea ancestor. So even if I use the blood river seal, it can't be defeated unless there is a more powerful existence than the blood river ancestor to fight against the blood of the blood sea ancestor. Heh. The blood sea ancestor is the top master in the blood clan, and his blood naturally has a strong defensive power. Hearing the old woman's explanation, Lu Xuan was also suddenly enlightened. No wonder this blood river seal can trap a blood clan strongman in the nascent soul realm. It turns out that the blood of the blood sea ancestor can even defend against devouring everything. Humph, I don't see how long you can resist. Lu Xuan snorted coldly, and then his figure flashed, and he was shrouded by the blood light. Under that blood light, Lu Xuan did not hesitate at all, and put his palm on the blood light. However, when he touched the blood light, waves of terrible power were transmitted, as if repelling Lu Xuan. Is this the blood river seal? It is indeed not simple. In Lu Xuan's body, the dragon and phoenix spirit beads were constantly operating, absorbing all the blood light into the spirit beads, replenishing the essence in Lu Zi's body. Kit, you have just stepped into the blood refining realm, and you dare to fight with me. I advise you to get out of here quickly. Otherwise, you will suffer a loss. Seeing that Lu Xuan did not retreat, but rushed directly into the blood light, the old woman sneered. Is that so? However, Lu Xuan shook his head slightly, and then said, then you blamed me wrongly. Since I dared to enter this seal, I have already made preparations. How could I be frightened by your words? Chapter 180 I will never forgive you. Bang, bang, muffled sounds rang out, and on Lu Xuan's fist, there was actually a layer of purple gold lightning power condensed. Thunder power. Seeing this scene, the old woman frowned. Boy, why do you have lightning power in your body? Could it be that your body carries a history of radar? I underestimated you. The old woman laughed grimly on the side. No matter what method you use, today, you must die here. Really? That may not be the case. After hearing the words of the 600-old woman, Lu Xuan didn't care at all. I saw him clench his right hand suddenly, and on that palm, there was actually endless lightning flashing. The endless lightning seemed to have turned into a lightning snake, wandering in Lu Xuan's palm. Under the wandering of the lightning snake, Lu Xuan's left hand also fiercely blasted forward. Chapter 181, Mount Tay Falls. At this time, the old woman sneered. Boy, have you ever heard that a drop of blood can destroy the world? What do you mean, Lu? Xuan pondered for a moment, and asked immediately. You will know it soon. The old woman's mouth showed a hideous smile, and it instantly became bigger, like a mountain pressing down on Lu Xuan. Damn it. Feeling the heaviness on his shoulders, Lu Xuan also gritted his teeth and cursed. The old witch is so cunning. Lu Xuan's mind moved, and he immediately retracted his arm to his chest. At the same time, he also urged all his spiritual power, and injected it into his arm. Under Lu Xuan's control, the power of thunder and lightning turned into a thunder sword in an instant, and then slashed out suddenly. Swish. The harsh sound of metal clashing came, and the thunder sword was directly split in half from the middle. How is it possible? Seeing this scene, the old woman's pupils suddenly shrank. Obviously she didn't expect that Lu Xuan's attack would be so terrifying. Although this thunder sword is made of thunder and lightning, its sharpness is by no means comparable to ordinary weapons, and even its hardness is already heaven-defying. But it still can't resist the power of the thunder sword. Haha, let me see what tricks you, an old witch, can play. Lu Xuan sneered and continued to form various seals in his hands, and then suddenly, the thunder swords in the sky were instantly dispersed, and each thunder sword almost fixed the old woman. Not good. Aware of the blood mist surrounding her, the old woman's face also showed a trace of panic, and she hurriedly turned the blood in the blood river to try to resist Lu Xuan's attack. Humph. However, Lu Xuan's target was not her, and the thunder and lightning in the sky instantly wrapped up the old woman. Crack. Crack. The sky was filled with thunder and lightning, which instantly submerged the old woman. In the midst of the thunder and lightning, the old woman's miserable howling could be vaguely seen. Chapter 182. No hesitation. Moreover, Lu Xuan also knew that the Blood Emperor was the supreme ruler of the Blood Clan. In addition to the Blood Ancestor and the Blood Demon, in the entire Blood Clan, only the Blood Emperor could be above the three of them. It's time to retreat. Lu Xuan took a deep breath, and his eyes gradually became clear. The thunder escape technique he just performed was to borrow the power of thunder clouds to achieve the effect of teleportation. However, Lu Xuan has not yet fully mastered this power, so his speed is limited. If he continues to entangle, he may not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan did not dare to delay and quickly retreated to the boulder and stretched out his hand to push it. Buzz buzz buzz. In an instant, the whole boulder trembled, and then with a bang, the boulder slowly flew up in the air. Ha ha ha. Let's go. Seeing this, Lu Xuan was in a good mood. When he was trapped in the blood demon's lair, he escaped safely with the help of this huge stone. Now that the stone has been broken, he wants to see what those guys can do to me. Want to run? Dream on. Seeing Lu Xuan preparing to leave, the old woman let out a sharp roar, and then her body swelled up instantly. In the blink of an eye, she turned into a giant thousands of feet tall, and the giant was full of blood. And her hands were also covered with blood thorns, and some of them even flowed with scarlet liquid, which was obviously poisonous. This time, she did not hesitate to burn her blood, and turned into a blood man, with the purpose of catching Lu Xuan and forcing Lu Xuan to sacrifice in order to gain powerful strength. After all, this is related to whether she can break through and step into the legendary realm. Get lost, Lu Xuan shouted coldly, raised his hand and waved it, and the thunder in the sky tilted down, bombarding the 1,000-foot man. Boom boom boom. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183. I can't do anything to you. The two fought so fast that it was almost impossible to catch their tracks with the naked eye. Only occasionally would the aftermath of the collision spread out, causing the collapse of the Stonehenge. As the battle intensified, Lu Xuan also discovered the problem. Logically, with his legendary 2-star strength, he should be able to suppress the man, but every time he approached the man, the opponent's offensive always disappeared strangely. No, we can't keep fighting like this. After a moment, Lu Xuan also realized the seriousness of the situation. The remaining thunder power in his body is now very thin. If he continues to fight against the man 21, he will definitely lose the competition. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan's mind moved, and the storage ring on his wrist flashed a brilliant light, and then crystal clear spirit cores emerged. These spirit cores are of extremely high quality, each of which is equivalent to 100-year-old spiritual medicine, and is very valuable. But Lu Xuan has taken out tens of thousands of spirit cores. Seeing this scene, the man in the distance also changed his face slightly. He never thought that Lu Xuan would have so many spirit cores. Since these spirit cores are given to you, you still want to die. What a foolish human being. Swish. Chapter 184. Eyes can't stop. Lu Xuan knew that, since the blood demon dared to call him here, he must have a certain degree of confidence, otherwise he would never act rashly. Hearing Lu Xuan's proposal, the blood demon shook his head and said coldly, sorry, I will never change what I have decided. Unless you can defeat me, you are qualified to negotiate conditions. Haha, you are a little too arrogant, Lu Xuan grinned and said, don't forget, this is the Holy Source Cave Mansion, and I'm the master of this cave. Can you really defeat me? Hearing The blood demon sneered and said, I really can't beat you, but don't forget that there are these monsters around me. As soon as the voice fell, the blood demon stretched out his hand, and in an instant, those blood slaves who were originally defeated by Lu Xuan rushed over and surrounded him. This is the road you found yourself. You can't blame me. The blood demon smiled coldly, and then stomped his foot down suddenly, and the whole ground shook violently. Buzz. In an instant, the ground suddenly squirmed, and then, one pit after another appeared, and gradually spread. Swish, swish, swish. The next second, 36 blood red light beams broke out of the ground, turned into blood swords, and stabbed at Lu Xuan and others fiercely. There are so many blood swords, there are thousands of them, densely packed, completely covering Lu Xuan and others. F***K. This is a trap. Chapter 185. Kill it while it's sick. Ah. It hurts. It hurts. The blood slaves were enduring some kind of torture, howling in pain. The blood cocoons in front of them split open, revealing faces twisted in pain. Seeing this scene, the blood demon suddenly became excited and muttered, the blood essence of these blood slaves has merged with the blood of those powerful demons. Although their strength has been greatly reduced, they also contain a huge amount of blood essence. If I devour them all, my strength should be able to recover a little. No matter. Kill it while it's sick. After saying that, the blood demon suddenly exerted force with his legs and rushed straight to the blood pits. Obviously, he was ready to devour these blood slaves to gain more powerful power. Swish. In a blood pit not far away, Lu Xuan was covered in blood, holding a long sword, stabbing one blood slave after another frantically. However, these blood slaves were not afraid. Even if their bodies were annihilated, they still rushed over ferociously. Moreover, the closer they were to the blood cocoons in the center of the blood pit, the stronger the blood became, even reaching the great heaven realm or even the half-step spiritual venerable realm. The most important thing is that their defense is extremely high. Lu Xuan slashed hundreds of swords, but only left shallow marks on their skin, which then healed quickly. It's time to end. The blood demon stood outside the blood pit, looking at Lu Xuan and others, and stepped forward. Blood demon is coming. All ghosts bow. The blood demon shouted coldly, and the blood energy was everywhere, as if the end of the world was coming. The endless blood energy gathered together, and turned into a huge skull. The skull hung in the sky, like a blood moon, releasing a gloomy and strange cold light. Boom 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 boom. Chapter 186. Playing the pig to eat the tiger. Hehe. Lu Xuan laughed harshly. Liang, my blood is made from the blood of a powerful demon king. It is full of poison. Unless you are a strong man above the level of a spirit emperor, whoever touches it will be doomed. Hearing this, Liang's face was extremely gloomy. This time, he really fell into Lu Xuan's hands. You just reacted now? It's too late. As soon as the voice fell, Lu Xuan's figure appeared out of thin air, and then stretched out his claws, and grabbed Li Yang's chest, intending to destroy Li Yang's meridians first, so as not to cause soul injury when using soul power later. Just when Lu Xuan was about to touch Li Yang, a golden bead suddenly emerged from Li Yang's arms, hanging in the air, releasing a wisp of vast energy fluctuations. Swish. Swish, swish, swish. The next moment, one golden bead after another flew out, turning into a sharp golden knife, slashing at Lu Xuan's claws fiercely. Clang. Lu Xuan hurriedly retracted his claws to avoid the bombardment of the golden knife, but was cut by the golden knife, and the red blood dripped down. It's time to eat something to replenish it. Lu Xuan snorted coldly, and then flapped his wings, and flew in another direction. Obviously, Lu Xuan was scared. The attack just now did not cause any harm to it, but angered it, and it planned to kill Li Yang by itself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lu Xuan's body trembled, and in the blink of an eye, he traveled 1,000 meters, and pounced directly on Li Yang. Boom. Chapter 187. No connection. These beasts are finally dealt with. Li Yang also breathed a sigh of relief. Not far away, Lu Xuan was stunned, looking at the scene in front of him in disbelief, and was shocked. He never thought that Li Yang actually had such an amazing trump card that even the blood slaves could not compete with. It's our turn. Many strong men in the Baron's mansion took action one after another, and all kinds of gorgeous lights bloomed. covering the sky and the earth, and madly bombarded 553 towards Lu Xuan. Point bang 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 bang. For a while, the whole blood pit was filled with muffled sounds, and the terrifying power was raging, making people palpitate. Point at the same time, the huge blood pool also rolled at this moment, and the space above the blood pool twisted, and a suffocating might emanated. What? A terrible pressure. Run away quickly, otherwise we will be crushed into meat paste. The space above the blood pool seems to be getting weaker. We must escape quickly, otherwise, when the space barrier is completely broken, all of us will fall into endless nothingness. Go, go, go. As the voices of the crowd fell, all the guards released all their mosquitoes and fled madly. Point however, they were still too late. Crack crack crack, a crisp sound rang out, and then the whole space suddenly became dim. Huh? What's going on? Where is the ground under our feet? Everyone raised their feet, but was shocked to find that the surrounding soil was cracking rapidly and finally collapsed completely. Are we going to fall into the void? Chapter 188. The real fear. Boy, I'll give you 3 chances to hand over those blood slaves. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless and letting you all perish here. Lu Xuan looked around with a cold gaze and then cast his cold gaze on the guards of the Baron's mansion and shouted coldly. Point Lord Lu Xuan, spare my life. This matter has nothing to do with us. Hearing this, the guards knelt on the ground and begged for mercy with fear on their faces. Humph. Hearing this, Lu Xuan snorted disdainfully and then his eyes swept towards the blood pool below. 21. In this case, I will cut off one of your arms first and then catch your leader. After saying that, Lu Xuan's figure shook and rushed straight to the blood pool. Point puff. The blood tyrant on Lu Xuan's body was lingering, and in the blink of an eye, 3 of his arms fell off and blood splattered. Point a shrill scream sounded, and the guard of the Baron's mansion suddenly twitched in pain. His eyes almost popped out. Point seeing this scene, all the blood slaves were frightened and trembling, not daring to breathe. Point humph. You are all lucky to survive. Point Lu Xuan glanced at everyone and continued, you are all smart and know how to choose. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense. Now, go and bring this stinky boy to me immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Hearing this, the expressions of all the blood slaves froze instantly. Point Lord Lu Xuan, if you do this, it will cause public outrage. Chapter 189. Looking at each other in bewilderment. After saying that, Lu Xuan's body moved, turned into a bloodlight, and drilled into the blood pool below. Point sir, what should we do? The guards of the Baron's mansion looked at each other, and then they all asked. Point this Lu Xuan is very powerful, and he has mastered the secret art of the blood clan. If we fight head on, we will definitely not have the advantage. Point the leader of the Baron's mansion guards flashed his eyes, and then said, let's do this. We will act in batches. Each person will be responsible for a group, and take turns to monitor the surrounding environment. As long as Lu Xuan comes out, he will definitely not escape. Point yes, buy it. Hearing this, all the blood slaves nodded in unison, and then dispersed. Point you go and keep an eye on Lu Xuan. If he comes out, remember to report immediately. Point the leader of the Baron's mansion turned his head and looked at one of the other guards and said. Point yes big brother, let's go and help guard. Point seeing this, several blood slaves on the side also asked. Point well, then you go. Remember, if there is any disturbance, report immediately. I and other blood servants will suppress Lu Xuan outside. Don't let him mess around. Point the guard of the Baron's mansion nodded and ordered. Point okay, big brother, then you have to be careful. Point the blood slaves nodded and quickly disappeared from the spot. Point in the blood palace, in addition to Lu Xuan and the 4 blood servants, there are more than 10 blood slaves who came from other cities to support. Point although Lu Xuan is strong, he is not a strong man in the god realm after all. Their number is far less than that of the blood servants and blood slaves in the blood palace. Point under the siege of thousands of blood slaves, it is almost impossible for Lu Xuan to break out of the siege. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190. Easy success. All the blood slaves changed their faces, their eyes were flustered, and they urged point. Hearing this, the guards all changed their faces. No, don't forget what we promised Lord Lu Xuan before point. Yes, we can't go back on our word. Otherwise, how can we negotiate with Lu Xuan in the future? And how can we survive point? Yes, we must never go against Lu Xuan's words. All the guards shook their heads. I advise you to obey my orders, otherwise I can guarantee that you will never be able to return to your respective cities. What? You dare to threaten us? Hearing this, the faces of all the blood guards suddenly became ferocious, and they looked at the leader of the 733 guards with resentment. Point. I didn't threaten you. Point. The leader of the blood palace shook his head. Point. All this was instructed by Lord Lu Xuan, and we don't want to disobey Lord Lu Xuan's will. Point. He continued to speak. Point. What? Lu Xuan asked you to do this? Doesn't that mean that we are now Lu Xuan's puppets? Could it be that Lu Xuan asked us to lure him out and then behead him? No. We can guarantee this. It will never happen. Lu Xuan saved our lives. Bag. We will never attack Lu Xuan. Point. Hearing this, the guard captain's face changed and then gritted his teeth and said. Point. Then what are you hesitating about? Take us out quickly. Seeing this, the eyes of the guard captains also changed. Point. When Lu Xuan saw the expression of the guard leader, he immediately knew that the group was half successful. Point. Okay, we will take you out now. Chapter 191. Ferocious Color. Hold on, everyone. We just need to hold on for a while, and Lord Lu Xuan will recover. Yes, I believe Lord Lu Xuan will definitely be able to defeat Lord Lu Xuan. The blood guards showed an expectant look on their faces. I hope so. Point. The guard leader took a deep breath. Point. You don't have to think about Lu Xuan now. What you should think about is how to get out of here. Point. You can't hold on for long in your current state. I suggest you escape as soon as possible. Point. Hearing this, the eyes of the guards became hesitant. Point. No matter what, this matter still needs to be reported to Lord Lu Xuan. After all, Lord Lu Xuan is a last support, and we must not lose him. Point. At this point, the guard turned around. Point. Don't be afraid. This place is not far from the Blood Emperor's palace. Point. As long as you can escape the Blood Emperor's control before the adults arrive, then the adults will help us get out of trouble. The guard said. Point. In your current state, you can't escape the control of the Blood Emperor at all. Point. What's more, Lu Xuan's target is you. Point. I think we should escape in batches, a guard suggested. Point. Hearing this, the eyes of the guards flickered a few times, and they obviously agreed with the guard's suggestion. Point. Let's escape separately first, so as not to attract Lu Xuan's attention. Point. Xuan's suspicion. Point. After the blood guards had discussed it, the guard spoke. Point. No need to run away separately. Since we are now grasshoppers on the same rope, we should act together. You don't have to worry about us. You run away quickly, and we will cover you. The blood guard leader shook his head and refused. Point. How can this be done? Hearing this, the faces of the guards all became solemn. Point. Don't argue. We are now grasshoppers on the same boat, and no one can abandon anyone. Point. The guard leader shouted in a deep voice. You go first. I will cover you. Although my strength is not as good as Lu Xuan, but my speed is very fast. Lu Xuan, he can't catch up with me in a short time. Chapter 192. What is the crime? Seeing this scene, a trace of ferocity flashed across the face of the guard leader. In this case, then it is not my fault. The guard leader's eyes flickered, and then he stretched out his right hand and waved it towards the blood pool in front of him. Point. But the next second, the entire Lu Xuan blood pool suddenly burst into dazzling blood light, and then something in the blood pool seemed to break the seal and burst out a series of creepy 090 roars. Boom. The roars like thunder resounded, and the guards were immediately frightened and pale. Point. The guard leader looked at the Lu Xuan blood pool with an indifferent face, waiting for Lu Xuan to appear from it. Point. What is this sound? So scary. The guards showed expressions of horror on their faces, while the blood guards were terrified. They showed a strong fanaticism on their faces, because the sound was coming from Lu Xuan from the blood pool. Point. Ha ha ha. I finally waited for this moment, and I can finally leave this damn place. Ha ha ha. I waited for so long, and finally I can get out. Point. Long live Lord Lu Xuan. The blood guards knelt down one after another, their eyes filled with intense fanaticism. Point. Shut up, all of you. However, at this moment, a furious roar suddenly came from the blood pool, and then the Lu Xuan blood pool rolled violently, and countless blood mists filled the air. How is this possible? Isn't Lord Lu Xuan trapped in the blood prison? How could his body still exist? Seeing this scene in front of him, the face of the guard leader suddenly changed. No. Don't hesitate anymore. Leave here quickly. I feel the presence of Lord Lu Xuan. You run first. I'll cover you. The guard leader shouted. You're crazy. How could we leave you alone? Chapter 193 Paying the Price. Lu Xuan's shadow snorted coldly and then glanced around. It's you who dared to attack my blood pool. What crime should you be punished for? Seeing the eyes of Lu Xuan's shadow, the guard leader's face suddenly turned pale. What? It's him. He is still alive. The moment the blood guards heard this, they were all ecstatic. Lord Lu Xuan, he is that despicable human boy. You must avenge us. The guard leader shouted loudly. Haha, don't worry. This human boy must pay the price. The Lu Xuan shadow smiled sinisterly. Yes, yes. Everything will be done according to your words, the guard leader said hurriedly. Okay, all of you step back. I want to teach this kid a good lesson. The Lu Xuan shadow sneered. Then took a step forward and slapped the Lu Xuan pool with one palm. The guard leader was so frightened when he saw this scene that his face turned pale. He knew that he might not be able to save his life today. However, at the moment when Lu Xuan's phantom slapped Lu Xuan's pool, a human-shaped phantom suddenly appeared beside the guard leader. Boom, the two of them collided fiercely, and suddenly there was a terrible power wave raging. How could this be possible? The guard leader widened his eyes, looking unbelievable. He never expected that he would lose so miserably. If you lose, sell your soul to me, and then you can leave here forever. Chapter 194, Have to bow your head. The guard leader saw this scene and his eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. This blood is a treasure condensed from his whole body's essence. Unexpectedly, it is gone at this moment. His heart is also filled with endless anger and unwillingness. HMPH. Do you really want to know why this blood is gone? Because they were all swallowed by me. My swallowing ability is beyond the understanding of you ants. Seeing the expression of the guard leader, the blood demon phantom snorted coldly, his face full of pride. This is impossible. You. How could you? How could you swallow the blood? The guard leader shook his head in disbelief. He couldn't accept this fact. Because this is the blood of Lord Blood Demon, who has unparalleled power. However, even such a drop of blood is extremely precious, but now, it is swallowed so easily. This makes him feel unacceptable. Humph. I devoured your souls, so you are no longer valuable. What's the point of keeping your lives? The blood demon shadow said disdainfully. In that case, I'll destroy you all. After saying that, the blood demon waved his hand, and a huge wave of blood suddenly swept out, flooding the blood demon waste pools. Plop. The guard leaders had no resistance to that power, and fell into the blood pools one after another, disappearing without a trace. Seeing this scene in front of them, the faces of the guards turned extremely pale. How is this possible? Seeing the actions of the guard leader, everyone was completely forced. Who could have thought that the leader of the guards was so defenseless that he was easily killed by the phantom of the blood demon? Chapter 195 Worried Color. Lu Xuan spoke quickly. He knew that his life was now in the hands of the blood demon shadow, so he had to bow his head. Hahaha, you are right. If I wipe you all out, it will be troublesome. But, do you think you are qualified to negotiate with me? Hearing Lu Xuan's words, the blood demon shadow also sneered. FX. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Since you have already stepped into my blood demon cave today, don't blame me for being rude. Blood demon splitting technique. The blood demon shadow waved his hand fiercely. Hula. As his voice fell, the blood-colored mist quickly enveloped Lu Xuan. Soon, the blood mist completely enveloped Lu Xuan, and then 900 began to rage wildly in Lu's body. No. Don't destroy my body. Help. Lu Xuan screamed miserably. In such intense pain, he felt as if he was bitten by thousands of insects, and he almost fainted from the pain. Chapter 196 Waste of Effort. My parents are both mortals, but because of them, my sister and I have everything we have now, so I hope you can let them go. Hearing the words of the blood demon phantom, Lu Xuan's eyes also showed a trace of worry. The power of this blood demon phantom is too terrifying. Even if it is his relatives, he can easily wipe them out, not to mention the other blood clans and human strongmen in this blood demon cave. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan's heart also rose with a trace of despair. Although his own strength is strong, it is almost impossible to defeat this blood demon phantom. Therefore, he was also very nervous in his heart, fearing that the other party would really attack his family. After hearing Lu Xuan's words, the blood demon phantom was also slightly startled and seemed a little surprised that Lu Xuan was actually a pair of siblings. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, A Delicious Meal. Then, he took Lu Xuan's storage ring in his hand. Human boy, I will put your family in a hidden place. When the time comes, I will come to this place again and take your family out. Speaking of this, the blood demon Shadow's eyes fell on the remains of the blood demon puppets, and a trace of crazy bloodthirstiness appeared on his cheeks. Human boy, it seems that I, 020, will have another delicious meal. Then, the blood demon Shadow directly put Lu Xuan's storage ring into his own storage ring, and then moved his body and flew directly to the distance. After a while, this area returned to peace again. However, there were several deep cracks between the ruins. Under the cracks, there were several shocking colors. At the same time, when the fight between Lu Xuan and the blood demon Shadow broke out, the whole sky became overcast and thunder flashed. Under the shock of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, one after another of the heavenly tribulations, like spears, bombarded those human Xiangeo. When the human Xiangeo was attacked by the heavenly tribulations, they also burst out with powerful defensive means to resist the bombardment of those heavenly tribulations. However, their clothes and armor were torn to pieces by those violent heavenly tribulations, and they were covered in blood. Many of them were even blown away by those heavenly tribulations, screaming. For a time, there were screams and blood in the sky. Seeing the heavenly tribulation, those young Xiangeos who were originally full of confidence did not dare to be careless and released their own protective treasures to resist the heavenly tribulation. Chapter 198, Complete Destruction. However, at this time, the dark clouds between heaven and earth became thicker, as if they were going to cover the entire city. Seeing this, Lu Xuan's face changed instantly. At this time, he also knew that the scale of this heavenly tribulation was definitely not something that ordinary blood demon puppets could stop, and he had to leave here immediately. It's time to go. Lu Xuan did not stop, and his figure flashed, and he turned into a stream of light and fled into the distance. Ha 21 Ha, human boy, you can't escape. Just as Lu Xuan left the valley, a harsh and unpleasant laugh resounded between heaven and earth. That voice was made by the blood demon phantom. After hearing this voice, Xuan's face became extremely embarrassed. Obviously, he also knew that the strength of the blood demon phantom had reached a very terrifying level, and even he was afraid that he could only run away. Immediately, Ji Xuan no longer hesitated, turned around, and rushed directly into the distance. However, just as he moved, a strong attraction came from behind, slowing down his movements. This time, he was more certain of the horror of the blood demon phantom. This blood demon phantom had definitely entered the realm of virtual immortals. Under Lu Xuan's eyes, the blood demon phantom actually sucked him into the air. B******D. What do you want to do? Let me go. Seeing this, Lu Xuan roared angrily. Chapter 199, It's impossible. Lu Xuan's eyes were gloomy, his handprints were flying, and he slapped the blood demon puppets again. The dust was swept away by his palm wind and was blown away directly. At this time, after being blown away, the dust condensed into sharp blades, which pierced through the bodies of the blood demon puppets, directly destroying the bodies of the blood demon puppets and turning them into pools of blood mist. Hiss. Seeing that Lu Xuan actually possessed such a terrifying power, the many human geniuses who were watching around couldn't help but gasp. Although, under the cover of this heavenly tribulation, they could vaguely see the physical condition of the blood demon puppets. However, they had no way to see the specific situation of the blood demon puppets, let alone know whether the formation they arranged could resist the erosion of the blood demon puppets however. When many human geniuses were horrified, they also showed ecstasy on their faces because, with the destruction of the blood demon puppet, the blood demon phantom also became much dimmer, as if it would dissipate at any time. In this way, their mission was also completed. Good, great. Just when those human geniuses were extremely excited, Lu Xuan couldn't help but raise his head and roar in his heart. There was a sense of joy and pleasure because he finally solved the blood demon phantom. The blood demon phantom also caused him to suffer heavy injuries however. Now he can't care about anything else. Chapter 200 General Existence. However, in their opinion, it was impossible. Because, although Lu Xuan was only a heavenly king, he had comprehended the power of space. The power of space itself contained an unpredictable mystery. No matter how powerful the blood demon phantom was, it would definitely lose in the face of this power of space. So, in this case, how could Lu Xuan lose? While everyone was talking about it, Lu Xuan slowly put away his handprints, and then Yi Guang also locked on the blood demon puppet. In his eyes, there was a cold light flashing, and he said, "Today, I will let you understand what is the real despair of 650. Whoosh, the moment he finished speaking, he stomped his feet on the ground, and the whole person turned into a stream of light, and rushed out. As his figure shot out, Lu the huge blood shadow behind Xuan also burst out with a monstrous blood wave, carrying a shocking momentum, and rushed towards the blood demon puppet. The two blood waves merged with each other, as if they had turned into two long dragons, roaring and tearing the sky. Under such pressure, the surrounding space was shattered. In this case, those blood demon puppets, CBFC, could not stop the two blood dragons at all, and they completely disappeared in an instant, leaving no residue. Seeing this situation, those human geniuses couldn't help but open their mouths, revealing a look of shock on their faces. Obviously, they didn't dare to believe this result. And those human geniuses in the Heavenly Emperor realm were also stunned, and obviously it was a little hard to believe. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.